The things that a narcissist likes about you in the beginning of a relationship can be the very same things that they hate about you or resent about you as the relationship develops. This can be very hurtful and confusing. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about why narcissists develop contempt in their relationships and why it's not your fault. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. I want to start today's video by telling a story about somebody that I knew a very long time ago, or I actually knew him for quite a long time, but when I was first getting to know him, the first few years I knew him, we were casual acquaintances, and he had been married for a little while to somebody that he was having marital problems with. And I should say that as I later got to know this person much, much better, in my opinion, this person is one of the most narcissistic people I have ever known. In my opinion, he is the epitome of pathological narcissism. But way back when I was first getting to know him and he was having marital problems that eventually ended up in a divorce, I remember he said to me once, when he was talking about the counseling that they were going to together, he said to me, "Familiarity breeds contempt." And he said this to me as if it was just a universal truth that was inescapable, as if any relationship that you enter into is just doomed to eventually turn into a source of contempt. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, that's a pretty cynical worldview. I mean, I don't think it's always going to have to be that way, right? But in hindsight, looking back all these years later, this was actually a very significant insight into the way that he viewed his relationships. And we're going to go back to him later in this video and talk about some other things that he said and some other examples of the contempt that he built for his wife at the time, who's now his ex-wife. But first, I want to talk about why narcissists develop contempt and what the difference is between a narcissist's contempt for somebody that they're in a relationship with and contempt that might develop in an otherwise healthy relationship, or at least a relationship that is not narcissistic. Because I think it's easy to become very confused about where the lines are drawn and what the differences are. Because like the example I gave in the introduction, a narcissist is notorious for resenting you for things that in the beginning they really liked. But this can happen to healthy people, or it might seem to, right? Or people in healthy relationships. You might think, well, when I very first met my significant other, I thought it was really cute the way that they stirred their coffee, right? But now after I've gotten to know them and I've been with them for several years, now the way that spoon clinks on the mug all the time is kind of irritating. I used to think it was really cute when I was head over heels in love and still in this infatuation stage. But now, after I've gotten to know this person for a few years, I actually think that's kind of annoying. So what's the difference? Am I a narcissist? There are huge differences. First of all, the narcissist views the things that annoy them as character flaws in you. Really big, huge problems that prove that you are a terrible, horrible person, okay? For a healthy person in an otherwise healthy relationship, these little things that become annoying are not connected to your measure of the worth of this person or your measure of how much you love or care about this person. If the way this person brushes their teeth is kind of strange and you used to think it's cute and now you think it's kind of annoying, that's really where it stops. It's something that's kind of annoying now, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't care about this person. It doesn't mean that you think they're terrible and they've betrayed you somehow by becoming this awful person that's ruining your life now by the way they brush their teeth, right? But that is how narcissists will view it. Also, little things that annoy you, if you're in a healthy relationship and you're an emotionally mature, healthy person, you're going to recognize that it's really about you. this person might be doing something a little annoying, but they're not doing it to annoy you. And it's really about you and the way you feel about it. It's probably more constructive to explore the reasons that whatever this is annoying you. And most healthy, mature people will recognize that, and they will either just dismiss it, get over it, ignore it, or maybe they might even explore, why does this bother me? Why is this annoying me? With a narcissist, if you do something that annoys them, no matter how small or trivial or unnoticeable it might be to most people, a narcissist feels like the universe revolves around them. They don't recognize your autonomy. They don't recognize you as an individual human being having your own individual experience. And so they really feel like if it annoys them, you're doing it to annoy them. Like somehow you are annoying them, and that is why you're doing it. And so, of course, why wouldn't they resent you and even come to hate you and grow contempt for you if you're constantly doing things on purpose to bother them in their imagination, right? So this is another difference between the way a narcissist will grow contempt for you and the way a healthy person might become annoyed with things you're doing. And this might also become the reason that somebody who is healthy and mature will look at something that is annoying them and they will ignore it. Or if it's really, really, really bothering them, maybe they will say something and say, hey, can you please not stir your coffee so much or so loud? It's just really bothering me, right? But they're still like making it about them and their problem with being annoyed with this thing, and that it's not the person who is annoying them. It's not their fault. A healthy, mature person is not going to feel the need to punish and attack the person that's annoying them, where a narcissist is, because a narcissist is imagining that these things are being done on purpose. And that's why the difference between a healthy, mature person being annoyed by something and a narcissist being annoyed by something will result in different reactions. A narcissist will feel justified in attacking you and punishing you when you probably didn't even realize that you were doing something to annoy them. And before I get into the reasons that a narcissist develops this contempt, I want to also give an example of an unhealthy relationship that is not narcissistic, in which contempt might develop. And just as an example, there are countless examples, but just as an example to illustrate what I mean, let's just suppose that there is a young lady who has been raised all of her life to view being a stay-at-home mom as the ideal. And she's been raised to believe that this is the only way that she can see herself as a successful human being. This is the expectation that's culturally been put on her. She is expected to be a stay-at-home mom. She is expected to like it. This is just the culture she was raised in. And let's say she marries a guy who shares this ideal, and together they have 5 kids, and as life goes on, this lady realizes that this isn't really what she wanted out of her life, that she was doing this because it was the expectation put on her. It was what she was told she should want, right? And this can get very complicated, but in this example, let's just say that this woman starts to resent her husband. Like she projects this feeling of being trapped in this life that she didn't actually want. You know, this didn't really turn out to be the life she wanted for herself. She feels trapped, and so she projects her contempt onto her husband, or she develops contempt because she projects her feelings of being trapped in a life she doesn't want. She projects that onto her husband. This is just an example of a situation in which contempt might develop where it's not really deserved. This husband doesn't necessarily deserve to have his wife feel contempt for him. Okay, he didn't do anything wrong. Maybe this is the life he wanted, and he doesn't really deserve this contempt, but it's building anyway. But this is not a narcissistic relationship. So what's the difference here? Where it is unhealthy, it is toxic, I would say. This is a woman who either hasn't had the opportunity or the ability to express how she really feels about things, and she doesn't know how else to handle this. So, this is a really unhealthy situation, but it's not narcissistic. But what's the difference? In a narcissistic relationship, the narcissist is going to feel trapped or oppressed or like a victim when there's really no logical reason for it, okay? As unhealthy as this situation is, and as unfair as it might be to pretty much everybody involved, it makes sense. There's a reason that this woman resents and is building contempt for her husband. Even though it's unfair and unhealthy, there's a reason. Like, you can follow the logic. With a narcissist, they will develop contempt for you over things that are not happening, over ways you do not feel, over things they are imagining. They will imagine that they feel like they're trapped or they're being oppressed. They will imagine that you are stirring your coffee in a loud way just to bother them. They imagine these things. So this contempt that develops for things that are not based in reality. Narcissists come to resent you for things that have nothing to do with you. They imagine that you are the reason for their failures or their perceived failures or their feelings of insecurity and self-hatred because they can't blame themselves or they can't take accountability for their own problems. They've got to blame somebody else because they can't handle accountability. And so who else are they going to blame? Of course, they're going to blame you. And if you are responsible for all these terrible feelings of failure and insecurity that they can't deal with or even acknowledge, why wouldn't they grow to resent you, right? Let's go back to this guy I was talking about in the beginning of the video, who resented his wife and told me that familiarity breeds contempt, like it was just a law of nature. This person was not from this country. He was from a foreign country, and his now ex-wife was a United States citizen. So when they got married, they moved here to the US where she was a citizen. And, after a few years of marriage, I remember at some point he was complaining to me saying that he had given up everything. He had left his home country, his family, his friends, and he had given up and sacrificed so much. And what has she given up? I remember him saying. Now, first of all, if you decide to marry somebody from a foreign country and you decide to move to that country and you feel like this is a huge sacrifice for you, but you decide to do it, that doesn't mean that your partner now has to do something, has to give something up now. Your partner now owes it to you to make some giant, huge sacrifice so that everything's fair now, okay? But that aside, what was really funny about this, now looking back, is when this couple met each other, they weren't even in the country that he was from. He had spent 3 years in a completely different country, actually, before they met. And he wasn't even living in the country he was from when they met. So in reality, he'd already given everything up, right? Just on his own because he wanted to. So my point is, he developed contempt for his wife. And at least one of the reasons that he gave was something that he really was making up out of nothing in his head. Because he hadn't given everything up and left his family and friends for her. He had already done that before he met her. But in his head, this was a reason to resent her and have contempt, because what did she give up? She didn't give up anything for me, but in reality, he hadn't given up anything for her either. Why do narcissists do this? Why do they have to make up fake reasons to hate you? What's the real reason that they hate you, that they develop this resentment? I mean, like I just said, they are blaming their failures on you and their feelings of insecurity. But in addition to that, when a narcissist first meets you, I mean, sometimes if they're a real sociopath, they are consciously aware of the way that they are manipulating you and love bombing you. Those people definitely exist. People that go straight into the relationship consciously knowing that they are pretending to love this person, and they're con artists, they're sociopaths. Those people exist. I'm not really talking about that type of a relationship. I'm talking about when a narcissist meets someone and idealizes them, which I think is a lot more common from my experience, from what I've seen. I think it's a lot more common for a narcissist to meet someone and really convince themselves that they love this person. And what happens when they do that is they idealize this person, or if this is you, they idealize you. They imagine that you're going to solve all their emotional problems for them, that you're going to make them feel awesome about themselves for the rest of all time. And it's like this euphoric fantasy that they believe you're going to provide for them every day for the rest of their lives, and they see you as perfect. They make up in their head who you are. They're not really seeing anything about you. They're not seeing you as an autonomous individual human being. They're projecting a fantasy over the top of you of a perfect idealized person that they're totally in love with, that's going to make life awesome every day for the rest of their lives. And then one day, inevitably, they wake up and they realize, maybe just the way you're brushing your teeth, or the way you're breathing, or the way you say something, they just realize that you're a human being and that you're not perfect, and that you're not this fantasy person that's going to make them feel awesome every day for the rest of their lives. Narcissists have extremely uncomfortable, painful, emotional problems that they refuse to acknowledge or deal with. And for a little while, these relationships can kind of numb that and hide that for them. And when they refuse to acknowledge or deal with these emotions, they subconsciously believe that you're just going to make them feel awesome, and that they're never going to have to deal with how they feel. And when that doesn't happen, when you turn out to just be a normal, fallible human being, they feel like you've betrayed them, because now they're going to have to deal with their emotions after all. You're really not going to wave a magic wand and make all of their problems go away for them. And because of that, these emotional problems that they've always had now become your fault, because you didn't fix them. Even if they're not consciously aware that that's what they expected you to do, and they're not consciously aware that that's why they resent you. That's why they resent you, because you're not a magic fantasy person that solved all of their emotional problems forever for them. But because that doesn't really make any sense, and it's incredibly unfair, they don't know what else to say. They don't know how to explain this even to themselves. So they got to say something like, hey, I left the country that I was raised in, that I grew up in. I left my country for this person. I gave up so much. I sacrificed so much. And what did she do? She didn't give anything up. That's why I feel this way. That's why I resent her so much. I mean, they just have to make things up. This is why narcissistic relationships are doomed to fail. Even if you end up staying with this person for the rest of your life, narcissistic relationships all have expiration dates. There is a point, like I was saying, where the narcissist just wakes up one day and just sees the way you're brushing your teeth, or hears the way you say something. It could be anything, where the fantasy just suddenly cracks, and they just suddenly realize that you're not a magic fantasy person that's going to solve all their problems. And from that day forward, the relationship is over for them. Maybe it's not over for you. Maybe you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person, desperately trying to figure out why they suddenly hate you for no reason. But that is the moment that the relationship ends. And any relationship with a pathological narcissist is doomed to expire at some point that you really can't predict. And narcissists will make up things that aren't even happening to explain to themselves why this has happened. This contempt they have for you for failing to solve problems that you could never have solved for them bleeds out of everything you do. This is why they seem to resent you for the way you breathe, the way you clean the counter off, the way you tie your shoes, where you left your shoes, if you left your shoes on the wrong side of the door, the way you clean the windows, the way you pull your car out of the driveway. They seem to just be annoyed at every little thing you do. You can't do anything right. And this is why. Because they feel so much contempt for you for not solving all their problems for them, but they don't understand it enough themselves to even be able to articulate it. If they could really tell you what they really feel, they might say something like, you were supposed to make me feel good for the rest of my life. You were supposed to make these problems that I have go away. You were supposed to make these feelings of self-hatred and insecurity go away. You were supposed to save me from ever failing again. You were supposed to save me from ever having to think about the failures that I've experienced. And you didn't do that. You were supposed to be my savior and you failed, and I hate you for that. That's what they would say if they could really articulate what they're feeling, or even be able to acknowledge what they're feeling. But none of that makes any sense. And that's why this contempt bleeds out of everything else you do, because they've got to make sense out of it in their own head in a way that doesn't bring accountability back onto them. They have to make it your fault so that they don't have to deal with reality. And this is also why they might hate you or resent you for the very same things that in the beginning of the relationship they loved. Because in the beginning of the relationship, you could do no wrong. You were their savior. You were this perfect fantasy person that was going to make life awesome. And now that whole projection, that whole composite of a fantasy person in their head failed them. The whole thing is a betrayal, a fraud, a lie, and they are the victim. And so anything about you that they liked in the beginning is part of this failure that has betrayed them. So of course they're going to resent you for all the things that they used to think were awesome. This is why they're going to resent you for your strengths and your weaknesses. They're going to resent you for everything about you because nothing about you actually has anything to do with it. They are going to resent every little thing about you because they don't really have an opinion about anything to do with you. They're trying to scapegoat you for the way they feel about themselves. And so nothing about you factors into this at all. They will resent you and hate you no matter what you do. If they complain to you about the way you tie your shoes, and so you change the way you tie your shoes to the way they like, this is why it doesn't matter. This is why they will now resent you for the new way that you tie your shoes. It doesn't matter if you do what they want or if you don't do what they want. This is why you can't make them happy, because none of the reasons they resent you are based on anything real or anything to do with you. So no matter what you do or how you live or what your habits are, they have to somehow make it bad in their mind. If they tell you that the way you tie your shoes is unbearably obnoxious to them, in reality, they're projecting, right? So the way you tie your shoes doesn't actually have anything to do with why they feel that way. They're blaming the way you tie your shoes for their own horrible feelings, but the shoes have nothing to do with it. And that's why when you listen and you change the way you tie your shoes, reality surfaces. The reality of the fact that the way you tie your shoes had nothing to do with their feelings in the first place. And that's why changing the way you tie your shoes didn't fix the way they resent you, because it wasn't the real reason in the first place. And if you get nothing else out of this video, the point that I really want to make here is that when a narcissist develops contempt for you, especially over things that they used to like, it's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. It isn't your failure. And it's also not your failure that as you try to, quote, fix these things, as you try to get back to these feelings of love that you thought they were giving to you, it's nothing to do with you. It's not your failure. You deserve love and respect. No matter what, you deserved it in the beginning and you still deserve it now. And I know that when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, they believe that it's your fault that they feel this way. They will come up with any excuse they can to blame you for the failure of the relationship and the contempt that has built. And so it can be really easy for you to believe this and buy into it. It can be really easy for you to blame yourself because that's what they want you to do. And they're doing everything they can to convince you that it's your fault. But I want you to understand that it's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. You can't fix the pathological feelings of self-hatred and insecurities in somebody who refuses to even acknowledge that they have this problem. Narcissistic relationships have expiration dates. They are time bombs. They are doomed to fail. And it has nothing to do with you. You always deserved respect. You always deserved love and acceptance from the beginning to the end. It's not your fault. You are good enough just the way you are, no matter what the narcissist thinks, no matter how much the narcissist wants to blame you for their own failures. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.